Hey, everybody out there! Welcome back to Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles videocast. I am one of your three co-hosts, Tom Hunyadi, and you may know me from my other show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast. On tonight's show, we'll be discussing John Lennon's first three solo singles, Give Peace a Chance, Cold Turkey, and Instant Karma. But before we get to that, let me introduce to you my three other co-hosts. First up, he is the longtime host of a very, 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 very good radio show called Every Little Thing, where you will hear every little thing. And one day you could be, and I'm sure you've probably played these three songs that we're going to be talking about plenty of times, so I'm sure you've got these planted in your brain very well. He's also the longtime co-host of the very popular podcast Things We Said Today with Darren DeVivo and Alan Kozin. He is the one and only Ken Michaels. Ken, hello, my friend.
Hi, Tom. Hi. I liked all those very, very, very varies. You were making me think of Press. I was thinking of Press, not the Lennon songs.
Yeah, well, shades of Feet in the Clouds, you know.
That's true. Very good. Very good.
Next up, he is the YouTube sensation. He's got the all the rant videos. He's got all the solo Beatle and Beatle review videos. He just has so many different kinds of videos, whether it's movies and music. He has vinyl kinds of all kinds, and he's got his listen to this button. And you all know him as Mean Mr. Mayo, but over here we call him Joe Mayo. And Joe, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Doing well, Will. Thank you very much there, Tom. Hello there, Ken. Good to see you. And I know Kid is there somewhere.
Somewhere right now. And speaking of Kit, she is the queen. I mean, pretty much the queen of everything now these days. Once the nicknames got to about 20 or so, we just said, screw it, let's just go with the queen of everything. Mm-hmm. So she is the author of such books as Michael Jackson FAQ and Songs We Were Singing, the guided tours to lesser known Beatle tracks. She is the queen, the doctor, everything, Kiddo Tool, and recently, Kit Sexy Butt.
Oh my goodness.
Kit, hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. And yes, that is my, I played this game on Facebook today where it's your Irish nickname. So apparently my new one is McSexy Butt. So, I'll just add it to the list. So,
yeah, there you go. St. Patrick's Day is next week. So, get yourself a little button that says Kit McSexy Butt or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I told Tom it's Dr. McSexy Butt. Let's get it right.
Doctor.
Get it right.
Show some to you.
Queen. I am sorry. Please don't cut my head off or anything.
Right. Hello, everybody. And I see a lot of people are tuning in already. So good evening and thank you for joining us.
Tune in.
Great. Well, we're glad everybody is here. Thank you for joining us once again, like Kit said. Before we get to tonight's topic, we've got, all the latest and greatest news with Ken Michaels. So, Ken, as always, take it away.
Want to hear me play?
Absolutely.
Let's see here. Well, actually, the first news item is one that has to be the first news item. And in case you haven't heard the news today, it became official that the Fest for Beatle fans has been postponed due to the coronavirus. And we're hoping to hear word at some point of when it will be rescheduled. I do think this was the right move to make. You go to the Fest for Beatle fans, everybody's in close corners, everybody's touching each other and hugging each other and whatnot. And, just to play it safe, Mark Lapidus felt that this was the right move.
So much for the groupies.
Famous groupies.
Yes.
Very good.
Should have said that. Yeah, sorry.
So we're all disappointed to hear this, obviously, but hopefully we'll be hearing something soon. We've been hearing possibly the fall it will be rescheduled. But as soon as we hear something, we will pass it along to you guys. And you can always call the Fest at 1-866-THE-FEST to find out any updates on the situation. If you can't wait for us here on the show.
Yeah, it was really a bummer because, we probably would have announced what we were going to be doing at the fest tonight.
Yeah.
True.
Planning to. So,
yeah.
Yes.
I guess we'll hold the announcement because we, whenever it's rescheduled, we may still be doing it. So, glad something fun. So we'll hold off on it. And of course, as Ken said, we'll keep you posted on it as soon as we hear when it's going to be rescheduled.
Yes, you will know right here on this show.
Yep.
Also, this is according to Roger Freeman's Showbiz 411 column. Anyone expecting for any of the Let It Be material for its deluxe treatment for its 50th anniversary to come out in May will have to wait until the fall. His information reports that no work has been done yet on the mixing, remixing, and so on of the original album, the original movie soundtrack, or the Peter Jackson documentary. The mixing sessions are set for July. This is all according to this one source. Another reason is that these expensive packages make better sense for a holiday release leading into Christmas time.
Yeah.
So it looks like probably, since that book that we've been talking about will be coming out in October, maybe everything will be out in October. The audio, the video, the Peter Jackson documentary, the original Let It Be film, however that will all come out. Whether it comes out in theaters first with the Peter Jackson, we don't know anything about that yet. But plan for the fall, probably October.
Right, it makes sense. Once they announced that book for the fall, I kind of had a feeling that's the direction everything was going to go in. Because just specifically because of the last 2 years with the Sgt. Pepper and the White Album coming out in the fall, I thought they probably would have followed suit with this as well.
Yeah, I just thought maybe there was a chance they would split the audio and video up, and maybe have the audio first and then the video later.
Yeah.
All right, now we need some good news, and we've got great news here. A brand new article posted today from Rolling Stone magazine is all about the history of Dark Horse Records and the artists signed to George's label. At the end of the article, it has encouraging news about work being done for a 50th anniversary release for All Things Must Pass. Danny Harrison and his archivists have unearthed hours of unreleased material and unheard songs from those sessions. Danny says, "We have people digging through mountains of tapes, and they keep coming, boxes and boxes of them." Olivia Harrison says, "A lot of it has been bootlegged, but we have better versions. We have all the 24 tracks of All Things Must Pass, and we found lots of different takes and talking in the studio." Now, the article goes on to say that the next few years, there will be 50th anniversaries for the Concert for Bangladesh and Living in the Material World, and those could be accorded expanded editions, although the specifics aren't worked out yet. And get this, your hearts will be racing. There's even talk of making a documentary out of the 1974 tour as well.
Wow.
So things are heating up in the Harrison camp. And I know it said in the article that of all the things that Danny has been asked about, the one thing the most was the 74 tour. So, yeah. And Olivia said that 2 of the concerts were completely filmed.
Right.
So, maybe the next few years we'll be getting a lot of material.
That'd be great.
From
I found it interesting how Danny described George's voice, during those shows, and how he felt that his voice kind of maybe enhanced the shows.
Yeah, I think he said it was gritty, but it had a lot of energy to it, or powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the way he interpreted it. But yeah, this is great news. We've been waiting to hear for the longest time about anything from the Harrison family coming out. So hopefully, fingers crossed, end of this year, All Things Must Pass, something for that. Also, thanks to Wayne Cabral for letting me know that Paul McCartney just appeared on the latest episode of Alan Alda's podcast show, which is called Clear and Vivid. It's over an hour long, and I have listened to this interview. It's really pretty good. Deals mainly with Paul and how songwriting comes to him. And Paul revealed that he has written 22 new songs for the musical It's a Wonderful Life, though not all of them will be used. He said that he is quite far into the project, and in another recent interview, he said it will premiere early next year in London. Okay? Really good interview if you get a chance to listen to it.
So it wasn't the same that we're so used to hearing these last decades.
Well, he did bring up the story about yesterday.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Once again in
Wait
this
a minute.
interview.
Did he dream the melody? Is that true?
I don't know. I got to go back and re-listen just to reacquaint myself with the story. Meanwhile, one of Paul's upcoming concerts has been canceled. That's on May the 26th at La Défense Arena in Paris from the coronavirus. Okay. The new April 2020 issue of Guitar World magazine has the Beatles on the front cover. In bold print, it reads Beatles 70 for 1970, and the words John, Paul, and George's Guitar Revolution. There is information in this issue on Paul's stolen bass and how to slide like George and more. Okay. Once again, Julian's Auctions will have a Beatles-themed auction with more than 300 Beatle items for sale. Among them, Paul McCartney's handwritten lyrics for Hey Jude, and they're expecting between 160 to 180,000 for that. A baseball signed by all four Beatles signed after their concert at Candlestick Park, expected to sell in the $100,000 range. And what they are calling, the original stage where the Beatles performed on May 16th of 1960, they're calling that their first public performance. They were called the Silver Beats on that date at Latham Hall in Liverpool. These are the wood planks taken from the stage. They're estimating getting between $10,000 to $20,000 for it. Other items include Ringo Starr's ashtray, used at Abbey Road Studios, McCartney's script, complete with handwritten drawings and notes from the Hello Goodbye video shoot, and John and Yoko's Bagism drawing. The auction will take place at New York's Hard Rock Cafe on April the 10th. How ironic, that date, April the 10th. That's the date when Paul announced the breakup of the Beatles.
Sure is.
1970, 50 years to the day, they're having this Beatles auction.
Interesting.
Also, in our previous show, we had mentioned that for Record Store Day, John Lennon's classic hit Instant Karma would be coming out in a 2020 Ultimate Remix from the original multi-track tapes. We heard that it'll be coming out as a 7-inch vinyl single. Since then, it was announced that there will be a half-speed master recording on vinyl of Paul's first album, McCartney, coming out, no doubt, for its 50th anniversary. There'll be 7,000 copies made for both the Lennon single and the McCartney album. Tom gave me that information. Thank you, Tom. Record Store Day is April 18th. Sad news on the passing of Simon Posthuma from The Fool. He and Marjike, it's hard to pronounce the name, Marijke, Kojer, were known for designing clothes for the Apple boutique. They made the sleeves for many albums and worked on the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band artwork that wasn't used. They painted the Apple building on 94 Baker Street in London. They painted George Harrison's chimney and John Lennon's Rolls Royce. Simon passed away on February the 28th. And then finally, just released, and you can listen to it online and on YouTube, brand new single from Dennis DeYoung, the former lead singer of Styx, doing a duet with Julian Lennon, which is called To the Good Old Days. They sound great together. You can really hear Julian. You know, his vocals are very pronounced in the duet.
Yeah, I thought it was a very well done song.
I think so too. So if you can, it's on YouTube. Check it out. I've been sharing it on Facebook. Dennis DeYoung and Julian Lennon, To the Good Old Days, brand new song. All right.
All right.
That's all the news.
Okay.
That's it, huh? Well, there's one other related record store thing item as well was the Ravi Shankar Chants of India release also for those interested in that. And it looks like that'll be the first physical media outputting for the newly restored Dark Horse Records, then I would imagine, since that was produced by Dark Horse. I mean, and George Harrison. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So. Cool. So, the first three non-album singles from John Lennon, since as the 50th anniversary of Instant Karma is coming up, and we're getting this released on Record Store Day. What a perfect time to talk about Instant Karma and the two songs that came prior. First with "Give Peace a Chance," Cold Turkey. But first, I wanted to just ask you three about. The idea of John putting out singles as Plastic Ono Band, especially this first one that had a Lennon McCartney credit on there. I mean, do you think? I mean, was people confused about this at the time? I wonder. This make it official that the Beatles were breaking up. However, this song came out before they broke up. But there's a lot of questions that come to my mind when I think of "Give Peace a Chance," and the fact that it came out before the breakup. But Ken Michaels, I mean, what your thoughts on this song? It's I really find the recording of it more interesting than the actual song. But yourself, how do you feel about the song "Give Peace a Chance"?
I think the song as a composition is a good song. I don't consider it, when you think about lyrics and melody in the traditional sense, it's more of it's an anthem song.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing really is the chorus that everybody repeats over and over again. Hardly anybody remembers all the words in the verses.
Right.
And even in later versions that came out, like the Peace Choir, which was in the 90s, and what Yoko did later on, she released a version of it, she changed lyrics around. But I think that "Give Peace a Chance" is one of the most important songs in all of John Lennon's catalog. And the reason why I feel that way is because I think it had a significant impact on putting an end to the Vietnam War. And the reason why I say that is because Paul McCartney himself said those exact same words. He said that it didn't do it single-handedly by creating that song, but the fact that in November of 1969 there was a moratorium in Washington where 500,000 people sang it with Pete Seeger. That's very powerful right there. And this was going on throughout most of the day. So Paul felt that song helped to bring an end to the war, and I feel the same way too. And in some ways, we can marvel at how great the music is of the Beatles group and solo, how much we love the songs and the compositions and everything. But if creating "Give Peace a Chance" as a song saved even one life, I think that's even a greater accomplishment than having a big hit record. So, I applaud John for writing the song. It was very spontaneous, as you know. He was writing it at the time, in Montreal during the bed-in. And as far as the production behind it, I love the fact that it was recorded in that room, although there was a lot of cleaning up that was done.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy who actually produced the record, Andre, there's a few quotes from him, by the way, in Ken McNabb's book, and in the end, where he talks all about this. But he really had to clean up the sound in the room. It was like all over the place. And the very clever thing that he did on there was he took a stick and there was a rubber garbage can that he pounded on, and that's what gave it that thumping sound that you hear and "Give Peace a Chance." And it was very effective, like everybody's singing along. He wanted it to sound like a party atmosphere, not like a slick studio production. And it was effective that way. You got to give kudos to Andre Perry for doing that. But, I still think it's a very important song, one of the most important ever that John wrote, for the reasons I just gave.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting topic too, because you said that he wrote the song during the bed-in, but I was reading now in this in this behemoth of a book, they were saying he did an interview during the bed-in and said that he had been writing songs and that he had already written a song called "Give Peace a Chance." So I thought that to be, a little bit of interesting information. And then with the Andre Perry too, he had also spoken that he had brought more people into the studio to record more. All we are saying is "Give Peace a Chance" too, which I think also heightened the power of that that chorus. Chorus. So, but Kid O'Toole, what talk about your feelings of the song and how do you feel about it?
Well, it's interesting. I wrote an article some years back for Beatle Fan about how this song, in addition to something like "All You Need Is Love" or even "Happy Christmas, War Is Over," these are examples, and "Give Peace a Chance." These are examples of songs that I think John, wisely incorporated elements of advertising. And what I mean by that is, using almost like slogans, using kind of a jingle, sort of a format that he wanted to, communicate a message that would get through to, the greatest number of people that he could. He wanted it to be memorable. And the best jingles do that. And of course, a jingle will want you the best kind of jingles. You remember them. They communicate in some cases whatever the product is, and will encourage you to do something. And of course, a typical commercial, go out and buy something. But in this case, he's encouraging you to, either go out and protest or whatever it may be. On the David Frost show in 1969, he actually said, when he was on with Yoko, said, "We're trying to sell peace like a product, and sell it like people sell soap or soft drinks. The only way to get people aware that peace is possible." And so, give peace a chance. That, I think people often say, well, the lyrics are very simplistic, except for, as you said, Ken, the parts that generally people don't remember, chanting all the names. But we all remember the chorus, don't we? I mean, it's everybody knows it. It's and in fact, a number of the comments we've been getting saying it's the ultimate sing-along. That's right. That's exactly what John wanted to do. And notice too that he isn't specifically saying go. He's not, urging a specific action. He's not saying go out in the streets and march. He's not specifically saying that, but he's, saying, think about it. Think about peace. If we gave it a chance, and I think he was realistic in many of these songs that he wrote, like "Happy Christmas, War is Over." It's like, if we want peace, we have to actually, want it. We can't just, we want it to happen. It's not going to happen magically, in other words. So, and so I think it's really, just sort of saying we have to be we have to want to make it happen. So I think that's what he was, and Tony, thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to put his comment up here. It's, this song is about changing minds. Exactly. Where he's saying, like, power to the people is telling people to march. So this is a little bit different than what you would consider as a typical slogan. So I think he, and of course, in the case of "Happy Christmas, War is Over," he actually did put up billboards, right? I mean, they did use advertising, he and Yoko. So I think "Give Peace a Chance" was a very good example of him using these kind of advertising techniques, and on purpose writing a quotes simple song so that we would remember it. And Yoko, by the way, we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, I think, about Yoko and the art movement she was involved in, the Fluxus movement. They incorporated a lot of advertising in their artwork because it was the mixing of high and quotes low art. And so I'm sure she was part of that as well, encouraging him to incorporate both. Plus, he had already used some of that as his as inspiration of other songs. Being for the Benefit of Mr. Kite, that was from a poster, an advertising poster for the circus. Good Morning, that was from a commercial. I mean, so he was very aware of the power of advertising, and I think
happiness is a warm gun.
Happiness is a warm gun, exactly. Yeah. So this is nothing new, but I think Give Peace a Chance is a very good example of how he effectively incorporates that to communicate a message that we remember to this day.
Do you think that because he was still a Beatle, that it helped with the power of that message?
Well, certainly that I think he knew he had a unique platform. I definitely think he was very aware of that. He knew he had that platform as a Beatle and, of course, soon to be ex-Beatle. But I think he knew that. He was very aware of that. And he knew, and of course, that's doing the bad end. He knew that he would be able to attract publicity doing that. I mean, I think he and Yoko talked about they were willing to make themselves the fools of the world, or it was something, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that. They knew they'd get publicity. And so they were willing to do that in order to spread this message. So, yeah, I think he was very aware of his position and that this message would then be spread far and wide. That's a good question. Yeah.
Joe, what say you? Can you hear me all right over there?
Yeah, I can hear you. There's just not much I can add to what's been said. Really, I have a lot of similar thoughts. I've always felt that for me, even though I'm a big John Lennon fan, "Give Peace a Chance" is a really good slogan, very powerful, still holds up today, and a chant that everybody can relate to and sing along with. But as a record, I've never really enjoyed it as a record, as a fan. I mean, in other words, I don't usually want to hear it when I'm playing it, like a John Lennon compilation or something. Or Give Peace a Chance comes on, I prefer to skip it, kind of long for one thing, and I find it a little monotonous as a record. Although I think the message is strong and it's a great slogan, I prefer to watch the visual of it in the hotel room. I mean, as a film, whatever you want to call it, a promo film, or when they're all jamming together, and you got Timothy Leary and you've got Tommy Smothers on guitar, and who else do we have in there? Derek Taylor, Petula Clark. We have everybody, all these people. To me, that's a spectacle, and I really enjoy that as a fan watching that. To actually play the song, it's not one of my favorite John songs, but I think it serves its purpose. Kind of like how with Paul, I'm not big so much on the song "Freedom," but I think it serves a purpose. It got its point across. And in the case of "Give Peace a Chance," it's become, like I said, almost like a classic line. I mean, it's a lot of times you see that on bumper stickers, or maybe if you buy a shirt of Lennon, it's on there, "Give Peace a Chance," and so on. So it's strong, and it really was catchy, and it worked. It did what it was supposed to do. I find that if I really want to hear the audio of it, I kind of prefer, I think, the live piece in Toronto version, the live version of that. I just like the way that goes. It just seems a little bit more upbeat. Maybe, I don't know if I'd use the word rocking. It's not really a rocking song. Not supposed to rock, but I like the way John's like coming up with he's thinking what he can come up with, the names, and making up anything to get the point across. It's fun. So those are my feelings, Tom.
All right. Well, Tom brought up an interesting point where he mentioned that and for me as well that it had been a while before I had heard the full length
Mhm.
version because Shaved Fish was one of the very first John Lennon records I had,
Mm.
and so I only knew it as a minute song,
Right.
really. And then, yes, and the power of that, the give peace a chance chant, and it was predominant in the John Lennon or the Imagine John Lennon movie as well. It was on, I believe it was on that record as well. But for me, being like 14, 15-year-old Beatle fan myself, it was really interesting. I really didn't care for it. Listening to the lyrics, bagism, shagism, dragism, madism. I mean, all these isms, and I mean, and
Ism.
what were the? I mean, how am I going to know what all these isms are? And they're talking about ministers and sinisters and banisters and canisters, and on and on, and it's
Yeah.
just like, but yeah, but the power of the chorus, give peace a chance is really what makes the song. Interesting, a few facts. I mean, it did go to number 2 in the UK.
Mm.
Here in the States, it went to number 14. It's a 5-minute song, like you said, Joe. It is. I do think it's a little too long. I think 5 minutes for that. It goes on. I know they want to get that point across. Give peace a chance. Give peace a chance. I understand that, but 5 minutes might be a little too much.
It's like I got it after 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting song. I mean, the making of it is really interesting. Like Ken Michael said, Andre Perry really had to do some work on the song to make it presentable. He brought 2 copies to John. He brought the original version, which they did, and he admitted that it didn't really sound that good. And then he presented him the version that he worked on, and John liked it so much that he kept it as is, and he also gave him a credit on the album. I think it was either a mixer or engineer, one of the two. So he was impressed by his work. So I would imagine that that song was a success. I mean, you're in a hotel room. You really don't have much, going on. You have four mics. You have a 4-track tape recorder, and it is what it is. It's almost kind of like a garage recording in a way, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
true.
but it's interesting, and I don't know if it's the chant's holding up, like we all know, but the song itself, I think I still am not the biggest fan of it. So
You want to talk? I mean, a little bit about you were asking originally about the credit about John.
yeah.
Originally he's saying pretty much when asked that he had this agreement with Paul that they were going to be Lennon and McCartney, and then later on he said, I should have just made it Lennon and Ono. Have John flipping around his opinion.
Well, he had said that he should have given the credit to Yoko because that's who he wrote it with. But also I heard that he gave McCartney the credit for kind of like a thank you for helping him with the Ballad of John and Yoko.
Yeah, Ballad of
That's
John
what I
and
heard.
Yoko.
Yeah.
That's what I. Yeah.
And yet also at the same time, when Mary Hopkin put out Goodbye, that was listed as a Lennon-McCartney song there, even though John had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So they both came out, second half of 1969. Can I add just something about, you were asking about Plastic Ono Band and the name and everything? That is something that John and Yoko came up with together, and I think a lot of that is Yoko's influence because, as we've talked about here, with Yoko, there was this tremendous freedom to do whatever you wanted to do. And as they explain the concept of the Plastic Ono Band, the group, it could be anything you want it to be. It could be a revolving band with different
revolving door of musicians,
different lineup every time you want. It could be just nothing on stage, but amps and microphones if you want. That's how Yoko's mind works. So to go out initially as Plastic Ono Band, that was something that the two of them came up with together. But I certainly think with a lot of Yoko's influence there.
And of course, that would help. That would give John some freedom to work with, to try these different things. I mean, we'll be talking about cold turkey in a second, but to give them some more freedom to put out some stuff that definitely does not sound like the Beatles, so that would definitely give them to have it be kind of a quotes faceless band, I would think would make him a bit more confident and get away from the Beatle John image. So that could be it as well.
Right.
There was one more thing I just wanted to say, because I was talking about Ken McNabb's book, and one of the things that I learned from that was that after Yoko had her second miscarriage, John and Yoko needed time away. They spent some time in Scotland, and while that was going on, they had that march in Washington with 500,000 people saying "Give peace a chance," the moratorium. And they didn't know about it when it was happening, but they found out about it later, and they saw the footage of this, and it kind of re-energized them. You know, for anyone who questioned, who are these two people doing bed-ins and what is this? Some people thought it was kind of crazy what John and Yoko were doing. So it kind of helped them, give them more confidence. And they were thinking, well, people are catching on to our message here. And so they felt that they could continue with more work in that area. So again, another reason why Give Peace a Chance is so important in John's career.
Cool. All right. And now a line made famous by the Monty Python bunch. Now for something completely different. Because in October of '69, we got a song that John presented to Paul as maybe a possibility for a next single. However, that was turned down by Paul. But Kit, let's start with you. Cold Turkey. What a really guitar heavy. Play it loud. Great vocals. Talk about your thoughts on Cold Turkey, Kit.
I'll tell you, every time I've heard this, I've just thought, what a courageous act to release this as a single. I mean, it's a great song, but I mean, this is a very personal statement. Of course, as we all know, it's about John and Yoko kicking heroin, and boy, does he reveal! I mean, he gives you the sonic experience of what exactly withdrawal is like. I mean, I cannot think of any other kind of song that could possibly, duplicate. I mean, I've never experienced it, but boy, after listening to this song, I think you pretty much know what it must be like. It's harrowing. I mean, it's absolutely harrowing. The lyrics are just, I mean, they're to the point. You're there with them. I mean, you are there with them. Eric Clapton's guitar, I mean, you almost feel, I mean, the licks are just like, I mean, not to be dramatic, but I mean, you almost feel like they're like needles going through you. I mean, it's just incredible. And of course, toward the end, when John is just screaming, I mean, you can just picture him in a room, just sweating and screaming and going through withdrawals. I mean, it is absolutely. As I said, it is revealing an extremely personal experience, and as you said, Tom, was saying, and now for something completely different. I mean, he didn't. I can't think of. I mean, he certainly did record some personal statements with the Beatles, but not quite like this, and this raw. And so to release this as a single. To say this isn't commercial is putting it mildly. And so I think this definitely is a signal of where John was going to go in his solo career. That this was, he was not going to follow. He wasn't going to be commercial. He was going to take risks. He was going to try different things, and he was going to be honest and write from personal experience. Not all of the time, but a lot of the time. So I think this is exactly this is just a preview of what the rest of his solo career would look like. So yeah, I mean, I like the song a lot. It took me a while. I mean, the first time I heard it when I was much younger, I mean, I was just, what the hell is this? Until I, knew his full story. I mean, it just, because
Right.
it's just so aggressive in your face. But once you know the story behind it, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, to release that as a single, wow, that takes guts.
Right. Well, you mentioned Clapton on the song, but the lineup for this track, I mean, you got Clapton, Lennon, Klaus Vormann, and Ringo. I mean,
doesn't get much
how
better.
great would it have been to have an album of that lineup? That's just a phenomenal lineup right there. But,
well, the Plastic Ono Band album was almost that.
Yeah, almost. Yeah. Joe,
Right.
your thoughts on Cold Turkey?
Oh yeah, again, like Kit. I mean, wow, it is in your face. It's really strong and powerful. I've always liked the idea that John was like, well, if you don't want to do it with the Beatles, I'll do it on my own. I sometimes wonder, and people ask me, do you think it would have been as good if the Beatles had done it? What if they had done it as a Beatles song? It's hard to wonder with a lot of the earlier solo songs by all four of them, really, what would have happened had they done it as the Beatles. I think sometimes maybe not as good. Maybe unless because we're just so used to it solo. I don't know, but he still, even though he said I'll do it on my own, he did grab Ringo. He got Ringo on the drums. And there's something about the honesty of it, as Kit said, that I really like. The fact that, look, he didn't come out and say it. He didn't just say in the song. He's not really telling you what he's doing, but you have to know. You have to be clued in. Although there's a little bit of a thing when we talked about honesty that I wonder about, because there's a story, and I wonder if Ken knows where I'm going. I'm looking at Ken smiling. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's about this, but maybe it's one of the comments. There was a story later on that supposedly John revealed that it really was about food poisoning, the song.
Yeah.
It wasn't about heroin withdrawal, but he said it was about heroin withdrawal, supposedly because he was afraid he'd be laughed at. He confided to somebody, that I won't go into, maybe we know.
I know who you mean.
Yeah, and whether that's true or not, I don't like. I like to think it's not true.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think it's about. Not that I want to. I'm not for heroin or anything like that at all. But I never touched this stuff. But it's more of a, I guess, in the rock and roll sense and kicking it and everything. It's more of interesting for a song to be that, rather than be just that he had some bad turkey sandwich or something like that.
Bad turkey.
So I don't know what's true in that regard.
I don't believe that.
I don't either.
I tend not to. I tend not to, and John was pretty upfront about it. Things, I mean, he would tell you things, even if it was to his own detriment, and also going to harm him. He would tell you the truth. So, as far as the what I like to think of as the withdrawal screaming at the end, that's a part of the song that I think is kind of necessary, but again, it kind of wears out its welcome a little bit for me. I know a lot of times I'll be listening to it when I had the Beatles channel. I currently don't have it on Sirius, but Cold Turkey would come on or something, and my girlfriend be in the car. She'd be, oh no, and then at the end, I'd look at her and I'd say, babe, I mean, he's withdrawing from heroin. That's the artistry of this part of him screaming like this. Right. But even I were like, I love that abrupt ending. There's like a real abrupt ending. However it goes, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad to have it end. I'm glad to hear it, but every time that the screaming and withdrawal, moaning and stuff starts, I kind of like, all right, I'm kind of cringing a little bit. I'm ready for the end, but look, but other than that, great, great daring rocker, so to speak, powerful guitar, good musicianship from Klaus and Ringo and Eric. It's good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was when I'm at work, I'll hit shuffle on my iPod, and one day this song came on, not too long ago, and everybody was like getting into it because it's a loud rocker, and we were getting into the song, and then all of a sudden that last couple minutes, then he's belting out all those aches and pains and whatnot, and then everyone's like looking at their time, was like, how long does this go for?
Yeah. It's the same thing in Mother when you're listening to Mother.
Yeah.
At the end, he's screaming, and I think that's brilliant. But you got to know you got to understand what the point is.
Exactly.
It helps a little for people that are not clued in, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Yeah, with Mother and Cold Turkey, you've got to know the backstories to really appreciate what's going on in those songs. Yeah.
So, Ken Michaels?
I think Cold Turkey was a very courageous song for John to come out with. And unlike you, Joe, I can never get enough of John screaming. He could have gone on for several minutes longer.
Oh, boy.
The same thing with Mother. It could have gone on longer. Just keep on screaming, Mama don't go, Mother don't go, Daddy come home. I could have taken that longer and longer and longer from John. I love the sound of his voice when it's those rough larynx tearing vocals of John.
I'm with you on Mother. Okay. I'm with you.
But I think it foreshadowed what was to come with the Plastic Ono Band album, because that's what you got a lot of with the song like Mother, for example, or Well, Well, Well.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
For that great screaming in that song right there. I really love it. I think it's a powerful record. Certainly not a top 40 song by any means. But
it was.
I did make
that's right.
40,
it was.
It's true. Let's say it wasn't going to be a huge hit.
Right.
But I love the build up in the song. That guitar line from Eric Clapton, na 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 na, na over and over and over. It's very hypnotic. And I love how the song builds towards the end. I thought it was a brilliant recording. And all the words are very concise. He gets to the point. He lets you know how he feels. And they're very powerful words. I think it's a tremendous single. I love the song. It's one of my favorite solo Lennon songs.
Yeah.
I noticed when Bruce made a comment, he said how Cold Turkey not reaching number 1 was one of the reasons why he returned his MBE. But I always thought that was kind of like just thrown in as a kind of a jocular thing at the end. Also Cold Turkey flipped that.
Right.
Maybe for publicity to bring attention to Cold Turkey.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but lyrically, like you guys say, I mean, it's very powerful. 36 hours, rolling in pain, praying to somebody, free me again. I mean, you hear things like that, I'll be a good boy, please make me well, I promise you anything, get me out of this house.
I love that part too. I'll be a good boy, please make me well. And then when you play with the matches too much, you could get burned.
Right. But I love this version. I love the version that they played at the Toronto Rock and Roll Revival.
Yes.
That's an excellent version as well.
I like the Sometime in New York City live jam.
Yeah, that's good as well. Good. I mean, it reached number 14 in the UK, number 30 here in the States. It's a very powerful track. The Ringo Klaus combo is amazing. I've said it on here before that I think Klaus Voormann is one of the MVPs of the solo careers of the Beatles. I know he didn't do anything with Paul, but man, what he did with Ringo, John, and George was some amazing stuff.
Amen.
And, he did some amazing stuff with this song and the next song as well. But yeah, the screaming at the end, though, I've always also felt that in some way that maybe could have been a little tribute to Yoko as well, because of her, style of screaming at the time. So I thought maybe that could have, maybe she influenced him to maybe do that in the song. So
very possible. Very possible.
Yeah. Could be.
So I always thought that was really the most powerful part of the song, even though it goes on maybe a little too long.
And a hypnotic, like Tom Brennan saying, the hypnotic bass part by Klaus Voormann also.
Yes.
So it's hypnotic too.
Yeah, great bass line. Great bass line.
Yeah. You know what's kind of significant about Live Peace in Toronto? If you went to see that show, you would have heard Cold Turkey not only before it was released.
Right. Yes.
They played it before it was recorded in the studio.
Yes.
So anyone who went to that concert got a treat there to a brand new
Although at the
song.
end, I think is that the song where John says, "Come on, wake up," or something. He says something at the end
I
because it
think
wasn't much
so.
a reaction to. I think it was
Yeah.
Cold Turkey. It was an unknown song and
Mhm.
stuff. And Yoko introduced it as this is the newest song that John wrote.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
maybe it was "Give Peace a
Have to-
Chance."
maybe
No,
It's a
no,
good
I'll
point,
listen
Ken.
back.
I might have got that wrong.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I'm
good
not
point,
sure.
Ken. 'Cause I had that in my notes as well. But
I think it's Cold Turkey. I think it's Cold Turkey. Been a
Right.
long time since I played that
Mhm.
live piece.
Yeah.
But anybody else want to add anything else to Cold Turkey?
Looking at my notes here. I think it's all covered my end.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now to probably, which I think everybody will agree that it's the creme de la creme of the three. I think this is arguably his best single ever, in my humble opinion.
I
But
agree.
Joe, let's start with
Oh,
you on Instant Karma and
yeah.
your thoughts on the song.
I was gonna say that. I love Mind Games as a single, but then again, that's really kind of from an album. Mind Games. If we're just talking singles, I mean, I love Instant Karma. Oh God, that's such a strong, guttural, primal, powerful song. I love the way it's produced by Phil Spector. It's got a little, grit to it, and I think that enhances it. We used to a lot of cleaner, for lack of a better word, stuff sounding from George Martin, maybe. But I just like the way that sounds, and the fact that John was so into the idea of doing it urgently and like let's do it of the moment. This is why I want to get it done instant, if you will, and I think it comes across when you listen to the song. I think you can. It feels like that, like it's just like fresh, powerful, and like let's do it now. Let's just get it because he
Yeah.
supposedly wrote and recorded it
Yep.
Oh,
same
within
day.
10 days. Yeah.
Was it the same day or 10 days? What?
It was the same day.
Same
It was
day.
released about 10 days after
At
it
least
was
10. Because I've
recorded.
heard, I heard,
Yeah.
and I think there was a quote from John where he said something like, I don't know how accurate it was, where about he said I wrote it for breakfast, recorded it for lunch, and released it for dinner or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
I remember that's pretty funny. I'm trying to think what else I have written here. It's noteworthy that he talked about how, for what it's worth, the intro he used to like to borrow things from other songs and stuff.
Yes.
You had Richie Barrett's "Some Other Guy," the piano chord intro is like kind of similar to that, where he talked about that when he was on WNEW radio with Dennis Elsis, '74, and Alan White is fantastic. I think on the drums. Again, we got Klaus, George Harrison. Now, what George Harrison on acoustic guitar, but can you really hear it? Would you? I've heard that.
They say electric guitar, but I don't hear it myself.
Yeah, I don't know because I
Yeah.
thought did George claim that he was on it? I think
He was there in the early sessions for it.
Right.
You
Maybe
know,
he
what-
wanted to do a solo after every line or something, and John didn't want.
you never know.
Anyways,
But,
but go ahead.
It's hard to hear, a guitar part there in the song, and it's certainly, if there is one, it's not like it stands out that it's George Harrison playing it. So but he's always been listed in the credits for Instant
Yeah,
Karma.
that's true. Absolutely.
That's
And
interesting.
Joe, you come up with a good point with Alan White. You also said it felt hurried, but I get that, but I feel like it's hurried in a good way. Throughout the music, and I think that's largely part to Alan White's drumming. I think it's a great track by him. I think in a way it's very Ringo-esque, especially during the fills on that song. So
Yeah.
it's
Good point.
yeah. Excuse me, but Ken,
If I could just add, I was just thinking before I forget this, when he said, "We all shine on," that line, in light of what happened to John, that also has a kind of resonance to it. Also, in retrospect, I mean, this is since what happened to him, that he still was, part of everything, and we all remember him and stuff like that. We all shine on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Ken?
Wow. This is definitely one of John's greatest songs in his solo career, probably of all time, I think. He put out so many great singles to me, we could all debate what our favorite is. I mean, for me, Woman is my favorite John Lennon single. But as far as, standalone singles that didn't come from albums, yeah, Instant Karma's right up there. I love Cold Turkey too. But it's such a powerful song. John's vocals are amazing. The chorus is also so fantastic and catchy, so great to sing along with. I definitely think it's one of his strongest songs, and it's one that classic rock radio still continues to play.
I was going to add that. Yeah.
Radio stations, over the years, unfortunately, there's a lot of songs in the past that they don't play anymore or don't play as much. Instant Karma is one of the few John Lennon songs from his solo career, along with Imagine, that still gets played quite frequently, because it also has an edge to it. A lot of John's songs have edge without having guitar solos, because the vocals are so, the vocals are so strong and edgy, and that's what carries a lot of his music, apart from the fact that, the lyrics are great and the melody is great. It's just a wonderful song altogether. No argument there. And it competed with Let It Be, as a single at the same time. What a great time to be listening to the radio then for a Beatles fan.
I read something somewhere that this was possibly, was it the first? Oh, gee, I want to say million seller. I got to remember the details about it. The first solo something or other. I don't know if it was.
It was definitely the first in America, the first top 10 hit from a solo Beatle.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It probably, I'm pretty sure it was a million seller too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you bring up something interesting, Ken. You bring up where it competed with the single "Let It Be," correct? Right?
Yeah.
Was that?
Pretty much the same time.
So if John was able to do that, why did they give Paul such a hard time about releasing McCartney at the same time as the album?
Not everything is easy to understand in the Beatle world.
Well, probably because he asked. Paul said, "Keep it quiet." Then he went ahead and turned around and put his album out.
It's kind of like when Red Rose Speedway came out, the deluxe edition, and people were saying, "Why didn't he put out a double album all these years?" And my natural reaction would be, well, Wildlife didn't do all that well. And then people came back with me and said, but Yoko Ono put out 2 double albums. So, not everything is logical.
Right.
No, it is not. It is not.
Yeah.
So, Dr. O'Toole?
Well, I'm definitely going to be have to echo you guys. I think this is one of his finest singles. And what I like is, I just think, like Power to the People, it just grabs you from the get-go. In the case of Power to the People, it's the marching, the sound of the marching, and the chorus and Power of the People. With Instant Karma, it's those chords, and then those drums just hit you right away. That boom, and a couple of commenters have said this, and I agree that Alan White is, along with John, of course, the MVP of this track. I mean, his drums are just so hard hitting. And they just propel the song. And I am not, I think I've talked about it before on the show, that I'm not the world's biggest Phil Spector fan, but I think he nailed the production on this, because it's just, he really did. It just absolutely, it just bursts through the speakers, and John's voice. I tend to get frustrated because I'm sure we've discussed it on the show before, how John notoriously hated his voice and insisted on having all these effects done to it. But in this case, having that sort of reverb on his voice, it almost made him sound like, he was delivering this message from on high. I mean, when that first stanza, Instant Karma is going to get you, going to knock you right on the head. You better get yourself together. Pretty soon you're going to be dead. I mean,
that's right, Albert Goldman.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I mean, but yeah, I mean, he's saying, I'm here to deliver a message, about Instant Karma. And I mean, you just, you're there from the get-go. you're there following this message. And I just think it's one of his most powerful statements, maybe besides "Imagine," but in a different way. And so absolutely, I think Alan White, John, and Phil Spector combined just to create one of the best singles, and not only of John's career, but I think in a way you could argue one of the best singles, period. I mean, it just has it all.
Yeah. Kit, can I add something to something you had said before? You mentioned, you brought up "Power to the People," and when you were comparing, which I also like as a song. But what I think interesting is I was thinking how "Power to the People," as much as I enjoy that definitely seems more of a period. Would you people agree? You guys, like it's I hate talking about things as dated, because I don't have a problem with that. But when you're talking about subject matter, it seems like it's from the early '70s, whereas something like "Instant Karma," by comparison, to me plays better today as any time kind of song. Where "Power to the People," right on, that's kind of an expression from early '70s.
Instant Karma is also about like your own karma, cause and
karma.
Effect kind of thing. It's a personal thing as opposed to a political statement.
Yeah.
And look, we've always had political problems. Give peace a chance works in any decade.
That works.
And I guess "Power to the People" will too.
But,
I've never been someone who was affected by music that people say is dated. Because we could have a long conversation about this. There's the early Beatles music, to me, a lot of it's dated, and I will still love it. What's the difference?
Right.
People who say '80s music, a lot of the heavy synthesizers and drums and all that, that's very dated for its time. I still love it. Whatever anybody says, it doesn't matter to me. I listen to all this music on a regular basis. It's never far away from me. So when I hear "Power to the People," I don't think to myself it's dated. I still love the song just like I always did.
Right.
Couple facts about the song. It went to number 5 in the UK, went to number 3 here, which is a damn shame because this is a number 1 song in my opinion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a lot of reasons why that's a good thing to work into here. I thought John did a lot of this to himself. I think because of his controversial personality, because of the things that he turned people off a lot. I like you said, I think this is a real number 1 hit, potential. But I think a lot of times people were like, John Lennon, I think he kind of like damaged that for himself. And I say that objectively from my like for him, I mean, I like him, but I'm trying to be fair, playing devil's advocate. I mean, I think a lot of people were kind of like, that Lennon and Yoko, and didn't really give them enough of a chance. And I don't know, had it been different, maybe it would have. But number 3 is not too shabby.
No, it's not too shabby at all.
Sometimes people read way too much into the charts, and I'm a big chart buff, as Tom definitely knows. But sometimes it's all timing. You could have a song that's number 1, that's a really great song, while "Instant Karma" is number 3. I remember when "Imagine" failed to hit number 1. I think the theme from Shaft was the number 1 song. That's a great recording. A lot of it is the competition and the other songs that are on the charts at the time. But it still shows number 3 is respectable. Believe me.
Sure.
Top 10 is respectable.
Something else I didn't know while researching the song, I didn't know that Phil Spector retired in 1966, so he pretty much came out of retirement, to help produce the song, which I found kind of interesting.
And I found out that George supposedly suggested Phil. Did you ever hear that?
Yep, I heard that.
Or he encouraged him to get in there and work on the song, I think what it was.
For this song, but I think from this it led to Spector working with the Beatles.
Right.
Yeah, that's another thing I heard, because I never made the connection that wound up being for "Let It Be." Then the connection, I never really thought about that. So I
Right.
was reading about it.
The Top of the Pops of performance is pretty
Yeah.
unique. I'm sure that's probably the only time we'll see Mel Evans performing. Well, besides Let It Be when he's doing the anvil for Maxwell Silverhammer.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
I mean, I love seeing Yoko blindfolded and crocheting. I thought that was quite a statement.
yeah, yeah. I remember John saying, people were actually getting mad, saying, "How dare she be knitting?" How dare she be sitting there knitting? 'Cause instead of having a smoke bomber colored light, Yoko Ono knitted. And I'm thinking, he's not doing himself any favors. I'm the biggest Yoko defender, for John's sake. But it comes a
Yeah.
time when I'm like, I don't sit there and do that, or blindfold
Right.
yourself or whatever she was
No,
doing.
but to repeat or to mirror you guys, I mean the vocal performance on this song as well. I mean, especially again at the end where he's screaming, "We all shine on." Again, I mean these were great screaming days for him apparently.
Yeah, sometimes I think his peak was 1970. A lot of times I think John's vocal peak might have been like Plastic Ono Man time. His vocals on there are really good.
Yeah, they sure are. Yeah, his voice was strong. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
Those songs called for it. I don't
Yeah.
know if he had the same ability later on, because
Right.
the songs from Double Fantasy don't have anything,
Right.
screaming vocals from John, that kind of thing. But
Right.
that's not to say he couldn't do it.
Mhm.
Right.
You
True.
don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Anything else? Anybody else want to add anything else to these three songs?
I think it was pretty unique. And I see a parallel here in 1972 when Paul was launching Wings. He released 3 singles that year without
Yeah.
releasing an album.
Right.
It's really bizarre when you think about it, because he was building up. He was recording the stuff for Red Rose Speedway, which came out in '73, and recording all these other singles to start your solo career. Even though he had the early albums with Yoko, Two Virgins, and Life with the Lions and all that, and he had Live Peace in Toronto. As far as studio material, the first 3 releases are all standalone singles from no album.
Mhm.
That was pretty unique for
Yeah.
its time. But the Beatles used to do, singles that were separate from albums all the time. And they looked at it, from British releases as separate entities. And I kind of missed that. I missed all these standalone singles.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, that was fun.
Paul
That
did
was
a lot
fun.
of them,
Yeah.
And getting a surprise B-side.
Yeah.
Part of it was where he was at that time. I mean, maybe he could only muster up a song or here or two there because of the fact that he was on heroin, and the band's breaking up, and he's just trying to find other things to interest him and keep him motivated. So I think it's cool that he started with 3 singles and not an not an album. I think that was a great way to start. I mean, in fact, that wasn't that how a lot of those early British musicians started were with singles.
A lot of them only put out singles for a while.
Yeah, Billy Ray Kramer put out a lot of singles, I think. Didn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And folks, aren't we excited to hear what this new mix is going to be for Record Store Day of Instant Karma?
Yes,
What the heck
indeed.
is it going to be? I wonder.
Yeah.
It's going to be. It's going to be hard to improve upon what we're used to. I don't know how radically different it's going to be, but I'm curious.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see.
I'm wondering if they're going to take away the Phil Spector production end of it and just keep it very raw.
Right. Interesting.
That's a possibility. It's interesting how you bring up Phil Spector, because I see so much criticism in Facebook of Phil Spector, and a lot of people now don't want to hear All Things Must Pass with the Phil Spector production and all that. They want to hear it stripped down. They love all the stuff from, say, early takes, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Beware of Abco and the demos and all that. But the treatment that Phil Spector brought to Instant Karma was not nearly as drastic as what he brought to Things Must Pass. So there was a certain amount of control there. So I think it worked for that level. Don't get me wrong. I love Spector's production.
Oh, of
All
course.
Things
Yeah.
Must Pass.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was Phil, by the way. That was his voice of approval
Yeah, I
there.
was wondering.
Coming through.
Knew you
All
were
right,
talking.
Ken.
Yeah, knew you were talking about him.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great chat. In the future, maybe we can discuss John Lennon's other two non-album singles, "Power to the People" and "Happy Christmas, War is Over," sometime in the future. But that's going to be it for this show. So why don't we do our little round table with what's going on? And Kit, let's start with you.
Okay. And while I'm saying this, I'll say thank you to all who have sent me very nice notes about my mother. She's been having some health challenges, and so. Well, I'm still going through that, so my writing's been slowed down lately, and so as soon as I can get back to a regular writing schedule, I will, of course, let you guys know. But in the meantime, you can, of course, check me out on Facebook, and I will, as soon as I resume writing, you can you will know as soon as my new stuff is up. You can check out my website, kiddotool.com. I'm on Twitter at kiddotool. I will be recording a couple of podcast appearances in the near future, so just keep your eyes and ears open, and I will let you know when they go, when the new episodes go up.
Cool. All right. Well, we all love your mom, and we hope she gets back to her normal self. And we look forward to hearing more news in the future. So please,
thank you so much.
Give her our best, and we really mean it. We can't wait to hope to hear that she's back to 100%.
Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Yes. Joe, how about you, my friend?
Yes, well, basically, I'm on the YouTube channel known as Mean Mr. Mayo, so please subscribe and check out some of my videos of all kinds of things, and also a lot of Beatles and solo Beatles. But I finally have something to also kind of promote, even though it's a little older now. I was with Dr. Kit on the Tomorrow Never Knows podcast recently. We did the show where we talked about the White Album and making it a single disc, which I like it as a double disc. I'm with Paul. To me, that's the best thing Paul ever said. That's my number one favorite quote about "Shut up." It's a bloody Beatles White Album. Shut up. Kidding around, of course, jovial in a jovial way. But I had a lot of fun there with Warren and Bob. And check that show out. I didn't promote it yet on my channel. I meant to do that.
Oh yeah, you got to do that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
In the way, so that was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I mean,
I'm also going to be at the Fest for Beatles fans. Oh, wait a minute. There is no Fest for Beatles fans.
At some point.
But there may be. So just stay tuned to that, and we'll tell you.
Very true, very true. And yes, I think that's something that maybe everybody has done in their Beatle fandom phase, is put the White Album as a single album, or whether or not they take away and add all the songs that were recorded.
And it was not easy. It was not easy. I've never done that. People always like to do it for fun. I played along, but it was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen so many versions where people will put "Hey Jude" and the regular, and the Electric Revolution, and take Revolution number 9 off. It can be fun,
Well, the first thing you do is take Revolution 9 off in the little what I call Segway.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyways, with myself and Two Legs, Andy and I have been we've been cranking out a lot of episodes lately, having a lot of fun. And speaking of Kit, who's been doing a lot of shows lately, 2 weeks ago she did our show, and we talked about the collaboration between Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson. Had a really good time doing that. Learned a lot. With having Kit on there, and she definitely was the perfect person to have on the show to discuss that, seeing that she wrote a book, Michael Jackson FAQ, so there's another plug for you, Kit.
Thank you.
And just recently, yesterday, we posted our latest episode on London Town. We had a very good writer. His name is Owen Ling. He's been writing a lot of good stuff lately, and he's been interviewing a ton of people who have collaborated with McCartney throughout his career. Check out his writings. He's interviewed Eric Stewart. He's interviewed Youth, Carl Davis, and Richard Hewson, who did the orchestration for Thrillington, and so on and so on.
Wow.
And Pete Best. He's he's talked to Pete Best as well. So I mean, he's accumulated a long list of very respectable musicians that have worked with Paul McCartney, and I applaud him, and I look forward to seeing more work from him. So you can check that out. And we talked about London Town, if I didn't say that already, but you can check us out on Podbean, iTunes, and iHeartRadio. We also have our YouTube channel, so if you head over there and please subscribe to that, we'd really appreciate it. And lastly, I just want to point out this new book right here called The Paul McCartney Catalog by Ted Montgomery. He was nice enough to come on our show. We interviewed him back in December, and I definitely recommend you guys take a listen or take a look at this book. It's pretty good. And that's what's going on.
I think I have a spot back there on my shelf for that. I think
there you go.
Very good.
Right next to Kit's book.
All right.
Well, Ted will be back probably in April, and I have 2 copies, so I'll probably be doing a giveaway during our next episode with Ted, so stay tuned for that. And Kit, do you want to give the information for Talk More Talk before we get to Ken?
Yes, indeed. You can reach us at, you can reach us on Twitter at TalkMoreTalk1. That's number 1. You can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com. You can find us, of course, on our Facebook page, Talk More Talk, Solo Beatles Videocast. We also are on YouTube. You can check out our YouTube channel. And we, of course, are on every podcasting platform you can think of. And so on iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. And so if you prefer to listen to us, you can do that. And send us your ideas for future episodes. We've gotten some great ideas from listeners. We love hearing that. So, and of course, your feedback. So we read all the comments and emails. So feel free, please send us a line.
Yeah, and we just passed 500 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you very much for heading over there and listening to the show on YouTube. We know not everybody can make it here when we do this show live, so we really appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to the show whenever you have the opportunity.
Yep,
so
and tell your friends.
Ken Michaels, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and over 3,000 views of our last show on Facebook.
Right.
Thanks to all you guys for that. Okay.
Right.
Unlike Joe, I have no room for books in my studio here, as you could probably tell.
Right.
And you mentioned Ted Montgomery. I interviewed him recently. He's going to be on an upcoming episode of Every Little Thing, my Beatles show, the syndicated version. So I'll tell you more about that when that comes. And I'll be giving away copies of his book pretty soon on my website. Since you mentioned Michael Jackson, and I have Kit's book here, Michael Jackson FAQ, and songs he were singing, I'm giving away both of them together in a special contest on my website, which starts this Thursday. So go to kenmichaelsradio.com. Just on the home page, there's a link right to the special contest page. Over the course of 8 days, I will post 4 titles of songs, 2 Beatles songs, 2 Michael Jackson songs. Write them down, email them to me, and you can win both books. Okay?
Here you go.
And by the way, let me just say, since I watched the Two Legs podcast of you guys with Kit on Michael Jackson, excellent show. One of the best so far.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You learn a lot about the relationship between Paul and Michael and the whole problem with getting the Beatles songs and Michael buying them. And I guarantee you will learn a lot in that particular episode.
If anything, you'll learn that he did not steal them.
Yes. Well, put that to rest.
Yeah. Also, I'm on another podcast, which is Sam Wiles, Paul or Nothing. He did 2 episodes on the Press to Play album. I'm on part 2. Okay. And you can find his show, Paul or Nothing, on Podbean. Okay. And hopefully someday soon we'll be doing our own show on Press to Play.
Yes, we will.
Joe.
No. The longer we're waiting, the more I'm starting not to mind it too much.
Okay.
I'm starting to appreciate it. So,
don't forget my Beatles trivia page. Every single week, you can win one of 9 terrific prizes, like Kit's book, Songs We Were Singing. Lots of terrific prizes, like I mentioned, past shows. Harry Nilsson's The Point, just released on Blu-ray, 50th anniversary edition, with Ringo narrating it. A lot of great prizes on that page, Beatles Trivia and Games page. The podcast for Things We Said Today, because Alan Kozin was sick for a while, we had to miss a few weeks. But in the last 2 weeks, we did a show each week. So you can catch up on those 2 shows. We did a show on Yoko for her birthday, for her 87th birthday, with a little bit towards the end for George, for his birthday. And our last show, we had John Montagna on, who is a great bass player. And he was talking about Paul as a bassist and his innovation as a bass player and what he brought to the Beatles, and how he was, in his own words, the architect of bass players in rock and roll. And he talked a lot about Paul's bass playing in his solo career on our latest show. And you can find that on Podbean as well as YouTube and iTunes. Okay. And don't forget Every Little Thing. The only live broadcast of that show is on WNHU, which is in West Haven, Connecticut. You can catch that Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time at WNHU.org, a full hour of Beatles and solo with some interesting theme. Very soon, I'm probably going to do another duets set, which I know Tom was bringing up in a few shows back. Very interesting. Some duets you probably never heard before. So again, it's this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, WNHU.org. I think that covers everything. I hope so.
Well, you're a busy guy. I mean, you're almost as busy as Womack.
Yeah.
I'll never get to that. That's aiming way too high.
Right. Well, once again, thank you everybody for tuning in and listening to us talk about 4 individuals that we love to listen to very much, and looking at Joe's buttons collection that he's been showing us today. So we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. And so for Ken Michaels, me, Mr. Mayo, Dr. Kid O'Toole, I'm Tom Hunyadi saying, cold turkey has got me on the run. Take care, everybody.
Folks. Thanks for watching.